Even with the best of intentions, it can be really hard to help people. Charities can inadvertently make the communities they serve dependent rather than self-reliant. Here at Cultivate International, we believe that community insiders are the best people to lead long-term effective change. They know the language, they know the customs, they're already accepted into their community, but sometimes they lack the resources, knowledge, and tools to start and sustain their community programs. That's where Cultivate comes in. We take dreamers, changemakers, and community insiders and help them build a strong foundation for their work in fighting poverty and injustices. We offer them training, connections to volunteers and coaches, and the financial support to launch and sustain their programs. We give them the tools and resources they need to make this world a better place, one community at a time. Empower, connect, sustain. That's what Cultivate International is all about. Join us in this movement by donating, volunteering, or spreading the word. Learn more at cultivateinternational.org.
Alrighty, hello, I am Sasha Nicole, and this is Elaine Timchak, the founder and executive director of Cultivate. And today, she's going to share with us about the work that Cultivate is doing in several countries around the world to equip leaders for sustainable change in their communities. I'm sure that you will find the impacts of her work to be very inspiring. So, without further ado, Elaine, can you tell us a little bit about Cultivate? What is your mission and your vision?
Yeah, definitely. So Cultivate exists to empower and equip leaders to transform their communities through capacity building programs. And what that means is really we work with people who are the closest at the community level to the people that they're serving, our trainees, and they are the people we believe are the best ones to affect social change in their communities. They understand the culture, the language, the dynamics of that community, and are the ones who have the best ability to lead long-term lasting change. So our vision is to really invest into these community leaders so they are well-resourced, they are equipped, they have the tools and resources and networks necessary to be able to do that work well. So really what that looks like kind of at a ground level is we work with an individual who says, I see this problem in my community and I have to do something about it, right? There are people who are hungry. There's not enough clean water. There's lack of access to healthcare and so many other community problems. And often these leaders say like, I know my community really well and I actually know how to do that thing in my community really well, but it's everything else that I really struggle with. So Cultivate comes in and we offer online training and coaching to these community leaders so they can build their capacity to do that work.
Wow.
Familiar? Yeah, thank you. If you're familiar, with kind of the traditional nonprofit model, it's usually someone who is, highly educated, well experienced, who leads an organization, and then there's like the fundraising and the admin team who are doing all of that work, and then especially in international development, then there's the programs team on the ground that execute that work. There's a lot of division between those departments. So Cultivate's vision is really to be able to build the capacity of these community leaders so they understand all of it. So they understand fundraising, financial management, communications, administrative work, governance, all of these things that are necessary that here in the United States we kind of say is like nonprofit management, right? How do they enter into that successfully so that being the best possible leaders for this work, they know how to work within kind of the sector and these expectations that we've set up so that they're successful.
Got it. How did this idea come about?
It's kind of been a long time in the work. I have most of my professional experience is in nonprofits, especially fundraising and marketing. And I've always had a heart for international work. I'm originally from Brazil, and so really connected to kind of the immigrant community here, and then spent a lot of time across East Africa before I started Cultivate. And I really saw that there was so many people that I would come across my path in different ways that I knew would be the best ones to lead efforts in their communities, but often they would share with me like kind of this deep kind of heartfelt feeling of inadequacy, saying like, I can't do what they can do. And they being kind of these large NGOs that would come in really well resourced to be able to do that work. And of course, there's always a need and a place for those organizations, but these community leaders really felt like they weren't being invited to the table because they one of my trainees said this once, and I use it all the time now, like they didn't know how to talk the talk, right? They didn't know how to kind of play the game and do the things that are necessary that we expect in the philanthropic sector, but yet they're the best ones. Like, they know the community, right? And so as this started to happen over and over and over again, it was just kind of like, I think there's an idea starting here. And eventually I got courageous enough to actually take the jump to start the organization. And so that was back in 2016. And
wow,
is here today.
Wow. That's awesome, because language is so powerful. And just having access to language alone, or knowing how to express your need, or knowing what that gap is and how do you fill that, is so crucial. And sometimes, we think that these problems are so complex and so hard, but sometimes it's just the smallest little pivot is all that you need to get on the right track to whatever the end goal is. So that's really awesome. Can you tell us about you've already spoke to this a little bit, but some of the services that Cultivate offers, like specific services?
Yeah, definitely. So we've gone through several iterations, but where we are now is that all of our training and coaching is done online, which really frees us up to be able to work with anyone, anywhere in the world.
Wow.
But when people, find us, there's no limitation of where we have an office, or, that we're only working in a certain place. Currently, we have trainees that are spread all throughout the African continent, India. We worked with people in the past in Haiti and Mexico and the Philippines. So really, it's whoever wants to work with us, we're willing and able to work with them. So what that looks like is we have multiple online courses that a trainee is able to access. They focus on topics like leadership development, the basics and kind of theory of community development, also like project design and fundraising, communications, using technology, financial management. So we really try to make sure that our courses are as holistic as possible, so that someone who is going through our program has access to what we believe is almost everything that they need to be able to do some sort of charitable community work with really with doing that really well. So our online training, a person gets access to it. They can do it at their own time, at their own pace. We really push people to try to complete it in a year. It is pretty intensive and comprehensive. And then we have a lot of one-on-one calls. So I get to know our trainees really well, get to know their stories, the hardships that they're facing, kind of their own personal trials and challenges, and then really build a coaching relationship so that I'm able to help them identify solutions to the problems that they're facing.
Yeah.
And once in a while, our trainees get to interact with one another as well too. So they get to kind of build their own networks of other executive directors, founders, community leaders that are in similar circumstances as them.
Absolutely. This might be a kind of an all-encompassing question, but what is the most common need that you find that they have in the training, or what do they walk away and say, this was the most valuable for me going through this, that either they didn't know before or didn't have enough background to access before?
Yeah. So almost everyone that comes to us, when I kind of have that initial phone call and I'm like, why did you call me? Why are we doing this? It is always, the same answer. Well, if I had the financial resources, I would be able to do all these amazing things in my community, right? Everyone always voices that as their biggest need. And, I would love to be able to boast that, after someone goes through Cultivate, they are guaranteed to have, better fundraising results. I can't promise that, but we do see a lot of people start to increase their ability to fundraise and have some, tangible, real, results in that. But what started was at first when I was starting Cultivate, it really did circle or kind of center a lot around fundraising, because that's what everybody kept saying. I don't know how to fundraise. Teach me how to fundraise. But what I learned was that, in the, as I call it, the philanthropic sector, there's these expectations that are placed on the sector as a whole, primarily by the people who hold the power, which are the people who hold the money, right? So they say, we will give you money if you submit to us a grant application that looks like XYZ. And no matter how fantastic the work you're doing, if you don't fit this mold, you're not going to get the grant funds, right? So we started to teach them, okay, this is how you do fundraising. This is what a grant application looks like. But then as I got into that, I realized there were so many other pieces that lead to successful fundraising. And that's where a lot of our other courses really started being built, because so many of our trainees, I would say, okay, what is, in grant world, right? Like, let's talk about your theory of change. And they're like, what in the world is a theory of change? Okay, well, now we need to teach somebody about what that looks like and what information goes into that so that they can successfully then write an application. Well, once you start working on a theory of change, you realize now that you first need to understand what the mission of your organization is. And maybe for some of us, especially I think Americans who kind of get to kind of know the language of this, you think, well, a mission statement's really easy. But until you live in a context and culture where that's common, it actually isn't that easy to create, right? Or to understand its value and its need. So then all of a sudden we realized we needed to have a program design course that really focused on the basics of understanding of like, what is the main need that you're doing or focusing on in your community? What are the effects of your work? What's your mission? What's your vision? All of these kind of foundational pieces to charitable work that then feed into fundraising. So I would say, back to your question, most of our people still continue to say, and I think it's the case for every nonprofit, if we had the money, we could do amazing things.
Right.
But understanding then too that they really need to have a really strong, clear understanding of what they're trying to accomplish in their community, how they're going to measure their success, how they're going to communicate to people what they actually do. And all of those pieces, once you put them all together, facilitates fundraising in a much easier, better, more effective way.
Right. Right. And it does. It comes back to language and just having the ability to articulate what you need and then how to go about that. Because it's to us, when you grow up in a country like America, it's very simple. You're kind of conditioned to understand this process, but not every country is like that. Not every person is raised in that with that kind of an opportunity. So I think that's phenomenal that you're, essentially providing.
And I would say like a challenge that we face is that the sector, the way that things are done in the United States has really become kind of the global norm, right? And so for many of our trainees, it's not that we are trying to teach them to become more Americanized, but sadly, in a way, we kind of are, because in order to be able to access the resources, they need to understand how to use this language, these methods, have these reports, understand the value of all of these things. And until the sector as a whole, I think, has a better conversation of saying, like, what are we really trying to achieve? And is the current method the best one? And I don't believe it is, but I wish I could convince others otherwise.
Yeah. Well, with time, you just might. You never know. So, so you already addressed this a little bit, but, what is one of the biggest problems or challenges that Cultivate faces when you're trying to address these problems, and what are your solutions for that?
Yeah. As an organization, our biggest challenge is, we're still a small startup organization. So low number of staff, we're all pulled in a million different directions. We are short resourced almost all the time, right, to trying to do what we need to do. But we keep moving ahead, which is great. And we've seen some growth recently, which is really exciting. But for most of our trainees, the people that we really invest all our time into, their challenges are, sometimes they feel really insurmountable, right? This past year, for instance, with COVID, we're trying to connect with our trainees, and most of them, we gather this information, and currently of the people we've worked with, the average trainee earns $362 a month for their salary, and on average has 8 dependents. So, and this is across multiple different countries across the developing world, and even kind of what we would call like those mid-tier level countries. So, they are often struggling financially as much as the people in their community that they're trying to serve. And so, because our program is digital, and we chose to be online because traveling to all of these different countries was really outside the scope of our work. And it takes such a long time to go through our training. It's not something that we could teach in like a week-long conference, right?
Right.
And so for them, they really struggle to have the financial resources, the technology, computers break down all the time, to be able to actually even access our content, or, if you were to sit next to me on a typical coaching call, I feel like I spend 20% of my time going, can you hear me? Or let me call you back, or it's not working, So the technology barrier and the funding barrier is really great. But one thing I'm really excited about is this past year, Cultivate was able to start offering what we call financial hardship grants. And so we give small stipends to our trainees when they need it, that they can use to purchase like internet data or routers, or fix a computer when it breaks down, just so that they can continue to work through our program. And we're seeing that is really helpful. We don't want to be giving out handouts all the time. Like, one of the things that Cultivate, I tell people from the start, is like, we will not do the fundraising for you. We're not going to do the work for you. Like, we're going to teach you, but you're going to do it yourself.
Yep.
But we also know that there's times when you need a helping hand, and you need somebody to be able to get you out of kind of that tough circumstance. So then you are empowered and equipped to be able to move on to that next level.
Right.
It's probably one of the hardest challenges that we have ongoing as an organization.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When people sign on with you, do they sign on an agreement? Do they sign to say, I will complete this program, or have they been pretty consistent in completing it, or do you do dropouts?
Honestly, like we're actually just trying to start some new requirements. We want to be as gracious and understanding as possible with the people that we work with. And sometimes people disappear for a couple of months, and then they come back, and there's some really hard circumstance that prevented them from participating with us. And we just keep telling people, like, we're your friends, so just be honest with us. Reach out when you can. Tell us when you have questions, when you're struggling. If someone is putting in the effort to continue to be in our program, if it takes them a couple years to finish, like, we'll stick with them,
right?
Because I believe so much in this content and this training that we've developed, and that it really is truly valuable for them. And so we want them to be successful, right? It's not just like, you're going to do this in 2 months and be done. Like, it's a lifelong partnership that we're really looking to build with these community leaders. And so we have some requirements, but we really believe that hopefully that they're for their good, and that keeps them kind of moving through the program to start to see the success. Because it's, we're offering training. They have to actually then start implementing that in their community and see the results of it.
Right. So Elaine, if somebody, watching this video either felt inspired to support your work, or if they want to participate, or they know someone who could benefit from your training, how could they contact you? What would be the best way for them to either support or participate in what Cultivate is doing?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Best way is our website. So we are at cultivatetraining.org. And on our site, anyone who wants to support this work, there's an option to donate. We are a nonprofit. We do scholarship. Almost all of our trainees, we do ask for some financial commitment from those that can afford it. But almost all the time, we offer great scholarships to our trainees. So we do rely on the support of donors to be able to operate. But then also there is further explanations on the courses that we offer, what the program looks like, and then different tiers or levels that someone can commit to participating. So one thing I'm actually really excited about is we've always worked one-on-one with community leaders. But this past year, we started piloting a program where we are actually working with an entire organization. And this organization works in Tanzania, and they have 16 staff members, and all of their staff members are going through the training all together at once. And so for the next year, or for 6 more months, I guess, we will be working with this organization to teach all of these people in Tanzania who are primarily focused on programmatic elements of the work, to really better understand holistically what's happening with the organization as a whole, so that they can contribute even more and that organization can see more growth. So once we're done with that pilot, we're going to be kind of open up the doors for other small kind of grassroots development organizations who want to offer this training to all of their staff at once. That's going to be an option for our program as well. And I'm really pumped about that one. So
yeah, that's fantastic. So when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that to this point you've engaged people from up to 24 different countries already, which is phenomenal. I mean, that's really, when you think about, being a small startup from Minnesota of all places, that's truly, truly an accomplishment. How do you measure your impact or your progress? Do you have a way of doing that?
Yeah, to be honest, it's really hard, because we're looking at, there's kind of two areas that Cultivate focuses on. One is really on like technical skills, right? Does someone understand what a mission statement is? Do they understand how to do bookkeeping of their, income and expenses? Do they understand, we even have some courses on understanding like basic technology, like using a Word document or Excel document to prepare an annual report, for instance, right? So there's some hard skills that are pretty easy to measure that we're starting to gather that data on, to be able to say like, yeah, we can see these improvements. And if someone, where before, did they have a notebook for measuring, for bookkeeping, and now they're actually using an online system? Great, huge improvement, right? But then there's the deeper, kind of more important aspect of our work, which really centers around the word of empowerment. And measuring empowerment is really hard, but we really are trying very hard to find ways that we can really show that long-term progression of, is that person really growing as a leader in their community? Confidence levels, that's one of the things that I get the most excited about, is when I see a trainee really build their confidence, like, yeah, I can do this, we do a lot of surveys, we do a lot of, ask a lot of questions to be able to see like, how are they measuring themselves? How do we measure them in their capacity to do all that is necessary for their work, and really mobilize their community to have greater ownership of the work of their organizations and the community work that they're doing? Are they implementing best practices in development? Are they are they implementing best practices for personal growth and leadership growth? So those are some of the ways that we measure our impact. And so far I to be honest, sorry, I don't like having the numbers exactly in front of me, and I haven't memorized all of them, but we do see a lot of self-reporting, especially from our trainees, saying like, I am so grateful for this, because here's all the ways that I've seen improvement in the work that I am doing for my community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Do you have, I'm sure you could probably regale us with hundreds of stories, really, but do you have one or two examples of connections you've made that really have stood out to you or have been really impactful for you personally that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, I've got two stories that I want to share.
Wonderful.
So the first one, his name is Paddix, and Paddix is actually probably the person that inspired me the most to start Cultivate. So Paddix is a community leader in Kenya, and I met him over 10 years ago while I was working at another organization. And Paddix was introduced to me. His title, or what they said was, he's the patron saint of Kibera, and Kibera is an informal community in Nairobi, one of the slums there. And, Paddix is dearly loved by his community. And as I built my friendship with him throughout the years, he really kind of helped me build like what Cultivate is today. But it's been so good to see, 10 years ago, he had started a small primary school for the community, and I think there was about 30 kids there, and now they're over 100. They were, a one floor building, probably, 12 by 12 foot room. And now it's, I think, 3 or 4 story school where they have, increased multiple different primary levels. I think they started like what we would say like first and second grade, right? And now it's to multiple different levels. They have just done a ton. And I'm not saying like, this is all Paddix's work, right? I've just been investing into him as a leader, but to see his confidence grow, his understanding of especially fundraising, right? It continues to be always a challenge, but he's in one of the toughest, most, I think from the outside, what a lot of people would say is probably one of the most hopeless communities on earth. But I have been there and I've walked there and I love that community. And it is not hopeless. It's really hopeful. And he continues to move ahead. And I would hope, and I think he would agree with this, to say that, his work with Cultivate primarily has just the most benefit that he's received is just to be able to say, like, keep going, like, keep doing this. Things are hard. There's some constant emergency. There's always something that's happening, but, keep doing these kids, these community members, they really need you. Another person that I've known probably now for I think about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. His name is Kelvin, and Kelvin is a young man in Zambia, and he lives in a rural community where, and this is not an exaggeration. He said there's about 10,000 community members in this like district, and like 50% of them are under 18.
Wow.
And his estimate was that about 4,000 children in that community currently do not go to school.
Wow.
Right. And so you hear that and you're like, oh, how do you even begin to tackle something like that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kelvin is a school teacher. So he works at a school, at a government school, but he really wanted to find a way to bring education to more children in his community. So he started a small primary school. I think it was like considered like the first grade, right? And it was about 50 kids, and they were meeting under a tree for a while, and then they started to build a structure.
Mm-hmm.
And now there is a building under place, but buildings, they don't matter much. Like what is happening is that these kids of all different ages are getting to go to school for the first time ever. And they have community teachers. All of them are unpaid at this point. Everyone in the community is investing into this together, saying like, you know what, the government's not bringing more schools to our community. We have to do something on our own.
Wow.
But it's really exciting, again, like to see Kelvin's growth throughout all of this. He's really active on social media, and I love seeing, just the way he talks about his work, how much that has improved and how much that has just grown in his reach. He's starting to get recognized. So other organizations are reaching out to him. He got an award. I don't remember the exact title of the award, but it was something like Literacy Award for the year, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And one of the values that Cultivate has is that as much as we are able to, we really want to help our trainees get networked to other organizations. It's not really like a formal program of ours, but when opportunities arise, I really love to do that. Yep. And so Cultivate occasionally connects with an organization out of Colorado called the Center for Leading in Community. And the Center for Leading in Community has coaches that work with primarily business people, really looking at like personal leadership development. Mm-hmm. But we were able to connect Kelvin to one of the coaches there, and they've been working together for a really long time. And every now and then I hear from them saying like, they can't tell me what they're talking about, but they're like, Kelvin is just like so fantastic, and and they're seeing so much improvement with him as he's getting this personal coaching experience. Mm-hmm. And so those are the things that, I'm sure like when you're doing this kind of work, there's a lot of bad days, but once in a while you get a really good day, and those are the things that really kind of keep you going, like, okay, this is great.
And how beautiful for that, whoever is working with him in Colorado, I think you said it was, to form this connection that they probably never thought that they would form when they decided, hey, I'm going to share some skills. They probably assumed it would be in Colorado or maybe in the US, but, the world it's a lot smaller. Thanks to technology, we're able to meet people that we never would have dreamt possible before. So, I think there's a beauty in that just in and of itself. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So again, this is incredibly important and valuable work. At this point, to continue advancing your mission, what would you say would be the most crucial element right now that Cultivate needs to further your work?
Yeah. I get quite often, people across social media, our website, they're reaching out to me, and, it's kind of cool. I mean, people are finding us just organically on the web, which I have no idea how it's working, but it is. And, they're like, I want to do this. And we have, limitations on how many people we can work with just because we're so small staffed. Mm-hmm. So for this year, we're really looking at like, we need to raise the funds to be able to bring on one more staff member. Mm-hmm. That then can allow us to basically like double the amount of trainees that we have, to be able to offer more coaching services, more training, and just have the infrastructure available to really kind of open up the doors to anyone, anywhere who wants to work with us. Excellent. So when someone makes a donation, we really say like that's being invested directly back into the program, so that we have what's necessary to be able to not turn away any trainee regardless of their ability to pay or not.
Right.
So I'm really hopeful that we can kind of reach that goal and be able to, by the end of this year, hopefully next year, to say like we doubled our program.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Let's hope that happens. Let's work on that. So if people wanted to support your mission then, Elaine, is your website the best place to go for that?
Yep, so cultivatetraining.org, and that's also the best place to learn more about our work. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities. We constantly have internship opportunities.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Once kind of the world opens up,
Yeah.
travel-wise,
Oh, wow.
very often almost all our trainees, we try to make sure that they have the right technology. So a program that we've kind of had pause on, but I'm hoping will start up again, is that we take refurbished laptops and then find people to deliver them to our trainees when they go to those countries, so
Yeah.
that they have that technology. So there's a lot of different ways that people can support this work.
Excellent. Well, we're going to put your link in the description, so anyone who wants to support, please check that out. I just want to say thank you so much, Elaine. The work that you're doing at Cultivate is just so inspiring. And I mean, I'm sure you have so many more stories, but just hearing a little bit about Paddox and Calvin was truly moving and inspirational. And here at Emanate International, our mission is to promote nonprofits and social enterprises that equip their recipients to become independent, autonomous, and thriving members of society. And Cultivate is absolutely doing phenomenal work to equip leaders for sustainable change in their communities. So thank you so much for sharing about your work, and about how people can walk alongside you and alongside the people that you engage, to further advance and improve our world. So for anyone listening, if you enjoyed our discussion today, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you will be in the know for future inspirational conversations with other leaders who are making great gains in improving our world. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Sasha. You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.